Have you ever felt that you possess a wisdom that doesn't belong to this time? A perception that pierces social masks with disconcerting ease? Carl Jung would call this a deep connection to the collective unconscious, a striking characteristic of so-called old souls who possess a vibrant intuition and a transcendental view of life. However, this same light that guides your inner journey can ironically attract external shadows that seek to feed on your vitality and your immense capacity for human understanding. Understanding why women with this spiritual strength become targets of toxic experiences is the first fundamental step towards a definitive and conscious liberation from any shackles. Let's explore how your unique essence may have been misinterpreted by patterns of control and how to transform this wound into a new personal power. The Jungian concept of an old soul suggests a psyche that has already integrated archetypes of wisdom and empathy far beyond the superficial ego of modern daily life. Women like this possess a worldview that prioritizes meaning and genuine emotional connection, making them fascinating and naturally magnetic figures in social settings. This magnetism, however, is precisely what attracts individuals with manipulative behaviors, who see in their depth an inexhaustible supply of attention, care, and constant emotional validation. Intuition, although their greatest compass, is sometimes silenced by the conscious desire to see healing potential in others, creating a scenario of temporary vulnerability. Understanding this dynamic is not about blaming their generous nature, but about strengthening their boundaries and honoring their own history of reconstruction and maturation. The ancient soul seeks wholeness, what Jung called the individuation process, and this search for harmony can be distorted by those who exert persistent emotional manipulation. Often, you may have believed your mission was to rescue someone from their own darkness, forgetting that each individual is responsible for confronting their own personal and inner shadow. The weight of carrying the world's expectations and heightened sensitivity form a combination that demands a high level of spiritual discernment to avoid getting lost in emotionally draining relationships. Today, we will begin a journey of clarity, identifying the signs that make your light so attractive and how to protect it without closing your heart to the beauties of the world. This is an invitation for you to reclaim your personal power and transform the impact of the past into a new awakening of silent strength. Each sign we will discuss here is a reflection of your inner beauty, but one that needs to be guarded by a vigilant awareness to avoid the invasion of your fundamental boundaries. Emotional manipulation often disguises itself as deep admiration at the beginning of the journey, which can confuse those with an old soul who value very intense connections. It is crucial to understand that your intuition never truly fails. What happens is a deliberate external attempt to stifle that inner voice through toxic patterns and confusion. At the end of this deep reflection, you will have the necessary tools to discern between a true soul connection and a trap designed to drain your essence. Allow yourself to delve into this analysis with acceptance, compassion, and the sincere desire to embrace your new phase of peace, balance, and unwavering self-respect. Your heightened sensitivity is not a character flaw, but a precious gift that requires a solid structure of psychic protection to flourish in truly safe environments. Women who identify with these signs have often gone through cycles of pain that now serve as fertilizer for a profound and totally unshakable inner transformation. Recognizing these behavioral patterns is the final act of a difficult phase and the prelude to a rebirth where you are the absolute protagonist of your peace. Pay close attention to each point, as they reveal not only why you were chosen, but how your resilience has made you capable of transcending. We are about to unveil the mysteries of your intuition and how it will be your greatest ally in rebuilding a full, conscious, and brilliant life. Deep empathy is the first mark of an ancient soul, manifesting as an almost mystical capacity to feel the emotions of others as if they were one's own vital experience. According to Carl Jung, this psychic porosity allows a direct connection with the suffering of another, which is a noble virtue, but dangerous when boundaries are non-existent. Emotionally immature people seek precisely this source of emotional nourishment to fill the existential void they chronically and painfully carry within themselves. For you, listening and welcoming is a natural process, almost a spiritual duty, but for a controlling pattern, this is seen as an open door. The challenge lies in maintaining your capacity to feel without allowing the emotions of others to flood and destabilize your own emotional center and clarity. If you identify with this healing journey and want to strengthen your awareness every day, subscribe to the channel now and activate notifications. By being part of this community, you gain access to content that validates your experience and offers practical tools to protect your energy and divine intuition. Our mission is to walk alongside you as you rediscover your self-worth and establish boundaries that honor your history and unique sensitivity. Subscribe so you don't miss any step of this transformation, and to help us bring this message of clarity to more women who need to awaken. Click the subscription button and start prioritizing your emotional well-being and inner peace today through profound psychological knowledge. Your genuine willingness to understand the traumas of those around you can be the key that hands control of your peace over to manipulative and selfish hands. The old soul tends to forgive easily, seeing beyond present behavior and focusing on the other person's original wound, which prolongs the permanence in exhausting cycles. This transcendental vision is beautiful, but it needs to be balanced with the practical reality that not all individuals truly wish to be healed or transformed internally. The emotional impact of trying to carry the shadows of others is a heavy burden that ends up stifling your own joy, creativity, and vital natural spontaneity. Recognizing that your empathy must have clear filters is the first big step in preventing your light from being used as fuel for chaos. Within the dynamics of a toxic experience, your kindness is often interpreted as a weakness to be exploited, not as a virtue to be celebrated and honored. The toxic pattern takes hold when the other person perceives that you will always offer another chance, based on your deep belief in the conscious human capacity for change. This persistent hope, characteristic of someone with a strong spiritual connection, can keep them trapped in a cycle of empty promises and only superficial and fleeting changes. It's necessary to understand that the other person's true growth doesn't depend on your infinite patience, but on their sincere desire to confront their own personal shadow. Protecting your empathy means carefully selecting who deserves access to the sanctuary of your heart and your deepest, most sincere understanding. Healing begins when you redirect that overflowing empathy toward yourself, treating your own wounds with the same tenderness you dedicated to those who emotionally hurt you. Rebuilding the soul requires you to learn to say no without guilt, understanding that self-care is the highest form of charity and balance. When an old soul establishes firm boundaries, it is not being selfish, but rather preserving the sacred channel of its intuition and ancient inner wisdom. This sign of empathy, once protected, becomes a powerful compass that will guide you only toward connections that respect your dignity and self-worth. You are a caretaker of life, but your first and most important mission is to care for the integrity of your own soul and consciousness. Having strong intuition is the second sign, functioning like an internal radar that picks up subtleties in the environment and intentions even before the first words are spoken. Jung saw intuition as an irrational function of perception, capable of brilliantly seeing beyond the corners of time and immediate physical space. For a woman with an old soul, this gift is a constant, But in a draining relationship, this same intuition becomes the main target of external attacks. The manipulator senses that you know the truth, and to maintain control, they need to make you doubt your own sanity and real perception. This internal conflict between what you feel and what the other person claims to be the truth creates a painful erosion of self-confidence. The silencing of intuition occurs through small, constant invalidations that lead you to believe you are too sensitive or imagining unreal things. Because your old soul values harmony, you may end up giving in and accepting the other person's distorted version to avoid unnecessary daily conflicts. This process of control is devastating because it strikes at the core of your being, your connection to the inner truth that has always guided you clearly. Rebuilding consciousness requires you to learn to trust your instincts again and the physical sensations that your own body clearly manifests. Your intuition is a spiritual defense mechanism that should never be sacrificed in the name of illusory peace or a toxic relationship. When you finally decide to listen to your inner voice again, the impact on the toxic relationship is immediate, because control only survives where there is doubt and hesitation. The old soul that recovers its intuition becomes an unstoppable force, capable of seeing manipulation tactics with crystal clear clarity and complete dispassion. Jung stated that returning to one's own center is what brings true healing to any experience that has left deep scars. This awakening allows you to identify the toxic pattern not as a flaw of your own, but as an external attempt to extinguish your essential light. Honoring your perception is the most revolutionary act of self-respect you can perform after a period of uncertainty, shadows, and manipulation. The maturation of this intuition after a grueling experience makes it much more refined and assertive, functioning as a high-precision filter for your future. You begin to value not only what people say, but the energy they emanate and the real congruence between their actions and words. The reconstruction of your life is now guided by a wisdom that has been tested in fire, making your soul even stronger, more resilient, and wiser. The peace you enjoy today is the fruit of the courage to have looked inward and validated your own truth, despite all the voices. Your intuition is now your best friend, a faithful guardian that ensures your path is always illuminated by awareness, love, and truth. A heightened intuition also reveals the points where you allowed your guard to let down, teaching valuable lessons about discerning between the ego and the higher spirit. By integrating this intuitive function, you cease to be a hostage to others' projections and become the master of your own perception of reality. The ancient soul does not fear the truth, even if it is uncomfortable, because it knows that clarity is the only path to true liberation. Every time you validate a hunch, you strengthen the muscle of your consciousness and move away from patterns that seek to diminish your inner light. The rebirth of your intuition is the clearest sign that you are ready to live a life of complete autonomy and brilliance. The third sign is the relentless search for profound meaning in all things, which makes you averse to superficiality and empty or fleeting connections. You want to understand the purpose behind every encounter, and the manipulator uses this thirst for depth to create a completely illusory connection. They may present themselves as someone who shares your same spiritual or philosophical ideals, creating a mirroring technique to gain your complete trust. For the old soul, finding someone who seems to understand their complexity is an immense relief, lowering their natural defenses and allowing control. It is vital to discern when the depth is real and when it is merely a script created to seduce your mind hungry for connections. This search for purpose can lead you to idealize others, seeing virtues that don't exist or ignoring clear signs of lack of empathy and character. The old soul tends to project its own nobility onto others, believing that everyone possesses the same level of integrity and desire for constant evolution. When confronted with the reality of a toxic pattern, you may try to find a spiritual meaning in suffering, believing it to be a test. However, true evolution does not require the annihilation of your being or the acceptance of behaviors that harm your dignity and inner peace. The meaning of your life should be built on foundations of mutual respect and not on the blind sacrifice of your own light. In Jungian psychology, idealization is a projection of our own light onto another, preventing us from seeing the person as they truly are. When you reclaim that light for yourself, the manipulator's spell breaks and reality emerges with all its necessary clarity. Reconstruction requires finding meaning in your own achievements and your own company, without depending on an external mirror to feel valid. The search for meaning in life is now directed towards your individuation process, where you become the center of your own journey. By freeing yourself from the need to find a savior or an idealized soulmate, you become capable of attracting healthy connections. The controlling pattern takes advantage of your desire to understand the why of everything, keeping you busy, trying to decipher the reasons for their immature behavior. You spend hours analyzing the other person's psyche, searching for justifications for the unjustifiable, while your own life takes a back seat and lacks sparkle. Understanding that some people simply operate on patterns of lack of empathy is a lesson in realism that protects your energy and your precious time. The meaning of your toxic experience is not in saving the other person, but in saving yourself and discovering your latent strength. By accepting that there is no deep meaning in disrespect, you free yourself to seek connections that truly honor your old soul. The ancient soul that integrates realism into its search for meaning becomes much more difficult to manipulate with empty words or spiritual promises. You begin to value the present and concrete actions, understanding that the sacred manifests itself in daily respect and the peace of home. The reconstruction of your consciousness now allows you to see beauty without being blinded by the shadow, creating a perfect balance of wisdom. The meaning of your life is now painted with the colors of freedom, autonomy, and self-love that accepts no negotiations. Your journey of clarity has transformed you into a woman who knows that the greatest meaning lies in living with integrity and full awareness. Women with old souls often need moments of solitude to process their experiences and reconnect with their inner world and archetypes. This healthy isolation is where you recover your strength and organize your thoughts, being essential for maintaining your mental and spiritual health throughout the day. However, in a context of emotional manipulation, this desire to be alone is often distorted and cruelly used against you. The other person may interpret your need for space as rejection or use it as a pretext to socially isolate you from dear friends and family. What should be a sacred refuge becomes a battlefield where you are pressured to be constantly available for demands. Faced with this silent struggle between your inner perception and external pressure, I'd like to know, have you ever felt your intuition warn you right from the start? What was that feeling like? And what made you silence that inner voice at that specific moment in your life to give it a chance? Share your experience in the comments, because hearing your story helps other women validate their own feelings and regain lost confidence. Your participation is fundamental to creating an environment of mutual learning, where vulnerability transforms into a tool of collective power and clarity. Let's transform our experiences into a map of wisdom for all who seek to start over with more awareness, emotional protection, and firm boundaries. The exploitation of your inner refuge occurs when a toxic partner invades your quiet moments with unnecessary drama or urgent demands for attention and validation. Because you have an understanding nature, you end up sacrificing your introspection time to meet the needs of someone who always seems to be in deep crisis. This pattern of control drains your emotional energy, leaving you without the power to reflect on your own life and the true quality of the relationship. The old soul, without its time for solitude, begins to wither, losing clarity and the ability to use its strong intuition to protect itself. It is fundamental to understand that the right to your personal space is non-negotiable and vital for maintaining your complete psychic integrity. In Jungian psychology, isolation can be seen as an incubation period where new facets of personality are being formed and harmoniously integrated. When this process is interrupted by a draining relationship, the woman feels a profound sense of being lost to herself, as if she were only living in isolation. Reconstruction, after this phase, involves creating geographical and emotional boundaries that protect her moments of peace and deep, restorative reflection. Reclaiming her refuge is an act of healing that allows her to listen to herself again and reorganize the fragments of her shaken identity. Learning that solitude is different from loneliness is a precious lesson that the old soul masters after traversing its emotional deserts. Today, your solitude is filled with a much more rewarding presence, your own conscious and welcoming company, free from external pressures or the judgments of others. The old soul that learned to protect its refuge is no longer an easy target for manipulation, for it has become its own safe haven. The healing journey has taught you that chosen isolation is a tool of power and clarity, allowing you to navigate life serenely. Your reconstruction is complete when you realize that you no longer need to flee into yourself to hide, but rather to celebrate yourself. With each moment of peace achieved, you reaffirm your emotional sovereignty and your unwavering connection to the source of all higher wisdom. Your creativity is the ultimate expression of your ancient soul, manifesting itself in forms of art, writing, homemaking, or problem-solving. Jung believed that creativity is a vital force emanating from the unconscious, possessing a healing and transformative power for the creator. For you, creating is not just a hobby, but a vital need to give form to what you feel in the core of your conscious being. However, this creative spark often awakens deep envy in people who live in toxic patterns and lack connection. The manipulator may try to diminish your talents, ridicule your passions, or even appropriate your ideas to feel superior and powerful. The invasion of your creative sphere is a subtle form of control aimed at undermining your confidence and making you dependent on constant external validation. You may have heard constant criticism about your projects or felt that your light disturbed the shadow of those around you. This disruption to your personal expression is one of the most painful aspects of a toxic experience, as it affects your ability to communicate. Rebuilding your consciousness necessarily involves reclaiming your brushes, your words, or any form of art that has been silenced in the past. Remember that your creativity is a sacred gift that no one has the real power to destroy, only to temporarily conceal. When you use your pain as raw material for your art, you achieve what Jung called psychic alchemy, transforming lead into pure emotional gold. The healing process is accelerated when you allow your old soul to express itself freely, without fear of judgment or repression. Each of your creations is a testament to your resilience and your ability to rise from the ashes of a draining and unproductive relationship. The pattern of control loses strength as you discover that your identity and your worth are anchored in your creative essence. Don't let the marks of the past prevent you from sharing your beauty with the world, for your art is proof of liberation. Your life is now a blank canvas where you can paint new colors, shapes, and meanings, guided by a very sharp intuition. The creativity of the old soul is a silent force that heals not only itself, but also deeply inspires everyone around it. Reconstruction is a creative process par excellence, where you redraw your boundaries and sculpt a new, much stronger version of yourself. Celebrate every small achievement and every new idea that arises, for they are signs that your soul is vibrating in harmony again. You are the artist of your own life, and the result of this transformation will be a masterpiece of peace, clarity, and total self-respect. Reclaiming your creative voice also means reclaiming your authority over your own life narrative, ceasing to be a character in someone else's story. The ancient soul shines when it is in creative flow, and this flow is the most powerful antidote against the stagnation of emotional manipulation. By dedicating time to what you love, you send a clear message to the universe that your pleasure and expression are top priorities. Let your art speak what words sometimes cannot, and feel the relief of being seen for your essence. The reconstruction is complete when your creativity becomes the beacon illuminating your new paths to freedom and full awareness. Having an old soul often means feeling a connection to past generations, carrying a wisdom that seems to come from a lineage of women. This sense of ancestry gives you a long-term perspective, allowing you to see beyond immediate crises and understand cycles. However, this same characteristic can cause you to assume a disproportionate emotional responsibility within a toxic and pressure-filled relationship. You feel you must heal the lineage, or that you have the strength to endure any pattern of control in the name of something. This heavy burden ends up stifling your own individuality, transforming your wisdom into a chain that binds you to the suffering of others. I'd like to know if any of these signs resonate more strongly in your heart at this moment in your journey of healing and personal transformation. Sharing your perception in the comments not only validates your experience, but also illuminates the path for other women who may be going through it now. When you name what you've experienced, the pattern of control loses its power, and clarity begins to occupy the space of doubt. Your voice is a tool for liberation, and each account here strengthens our collective healing and transformation energy after manipulation. Let's talk about how these signs manifested in your life and how you are using your intuition today to rebuild yourself. The burden of being the rock in a relationship is a common trap for women with strong intuition as the other person learns to delegate crises. The manipulative person exploits your maturity, acting childishly or irresponsibly so that you assume the role of protective guide. This imbalance drains your vitality and prevents you from focusing on your own individuation process, keeping you occupied with the constant chaos of others. Jung warned that carrying the emotional weight of another person hinders the growth of both, generating a relationship of dependence and deep resentment. It is necessary to understand that your wisdom should be used to guide your own life, and not to serve as a shield for someone who refuses to help. Reconstructing your history begins when you honor your ancestors by first caring for your own personal and inner integrity and happiness. Releasing yourself from a toxic experience is also an act of healing for your entire lineage, breaking cycles of silence and acceptance. Your ancient soul recognizes that true maturity involves the courage to let go of what doesn't belong to you and to walk in your own light. Closing a draining cycle is the greatest tribute you can pay to the wisdom you carry, showing that self-respect wins. The peace you achieve now reverberates backward and forward in time, bringing awareness to all your future relationships and life. By letting go of carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders, you create space for your intuition to flourish lightly and joyfully, without burden. The old soul doesn't need to suffer to be wise. True wisdom lies in the ability to discern when it's time to fight and to leave. Transformation happens the moment you realize that your emotional responsibility ends where the other's begins, clearly and fairly. This awakening brings a refreshing clarity, allowing you to breathe without the tightness in your chest that has accompanied you for so long in the past. Your reconstruction is a testament to the fact that it's possible to be profound and wise without being a victim of patterns that only seek to exploit you. The seventh sign is the tendency to spiritualize suffering, believing that the toxic relationship is a necessary lesson for the evolution of your old soul. You may find yourself using concepts like karma or destiny to justify remaining in an environment that wounds your dignity and peace. Jung taught that consciousness requires confronting reality as it is, without the lenses of denial or excessive idealization of suffering. The manipulator perceives this inclination and uses philosophical or religious discourses to keep you trapped in a cycle of acceptance and emotional passivity. Learning to distinguish between spiritual growth and emotional abuse is the decisive step towards your real and lasting liberation at this stage of life. Your high tolerance, born from a soul that has seen much, can cause you to minimize signs of disrespect or lack of empathy. You believe that if you are patient enough, the other person will reach the same level of consciousness as you, which rarely happens. Spiritual maturity is not a journey you can take for the other person, and your presence often only delays their awakening. Reconstruction requires you to understand that the greatest spiritual act is self-respect and the preservation of the life that dwells within you. By setting boundaries, you're not being less spiritual, but rather more aware of the sacred value of your existence and your time. The old soul needs to integrate healthy aggression, which is nothing more than the ability to defend its space and integrity. Jung spoke about integrating the shadow, and part of this process is recognizing that you have the right to say no and to walk away. When you stop spiritualizing pain, the reality of the control pattern becomes unbearable, generating the energy needed to leave. The reconstruction of your consciousness now allows you to seek connections based on joy and reciprocity, not on eternal emotional rescue. Your healing journey teaches you that true light doesn't need shadows to shine, but rather fertile and safe ground. The lack of clear boundaries is a silent invitation for emotionally immature people to invade your life and dictate the rules of your happiness. By reclaiming your authority, you redefine what is acceptable, creating a circle of protection that only conscious people can cross with mutual respect. The old soul, who knows how to set boundaries, is a force of nature, capable of creating environments of peace and harmony for themselves. Complete transformation occurs when you realize that you don't need trials to prove your strength or your superior inner wisdom. Peace is your new standard, and anything that threatens it is immediately filtered by your new, vigilant, and very strong awareness. The closing of a cycle with spiritualized tolerance marks the beginning of a life lived in truth and total transparency with your feelings. You cease to be a martyr and become a master of your own life, guiding your steps with clarity and unwavering self-respect. The reconstruction of the old soul is a process of simplification, where you remove what is toxic to make room for what is vital. Your intuition now works in service of your happiness, and no longer to justify the behavior of those who do not value it. Celebrate your new freedom, for it is the fruit of your courage to look at reality and choose yourself above all else. At this stage of the journey, you begin to realize that much of what you experienced was the result of mutual projections that obscured your vision. The manipulator projected onto you the figure of the caring mother or savior, while you projected onto them the possibility of a deep connection. Jung called this phenomenon mystical participation, where the boundaries between the self and the other become dangerously blurred and internally confused. The awakening of individuality occurs when you reclaim your projections and see the other exactly as they are, an emotionally immature person. This moment of clarity can be painful, but it is what ensures that you will never fall into similar traps again in your future. If this content is helping you understand your journey and rebuild your life, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. By clicking the subscribe button, you join thousands of women who have decided to honor their intuition and seek a life of peace. Your participation in the comments and your subscription are what keep this message alive and reaching more people who need to awaken now. Together, we are creating a space of Jungian wisdom applied to real life, focused on overcoming toxic experiences and emotional manipulation. Subscribe to ensure that your healing journey continues to be nourished by quality information and deep respect for your soul. Reconstruction requires you to embrace your own shadow, those parts of yourself that felt lacking or believed in false promises. By embracing all your versions, you become whole and less susceptible to the tactics of those who seek to fragment your self-esteem and confidence. Psychological maturity happens in the silence of your new life, where you no longer need to explain yourself or defend yourself against unfair attacks. The old soul that has passed through the fire of control patterns emerges with a much sharper vision of human nature. You now value the naked truth because you know it is the only solid foundation for a lasting reconstruction. The end of projections means you've stopped trying to see what doesn't exist and started appreciating what truly is real. You've learned to love the reality of your solitude and the beauty of your independence without the weight of others' expectations on your shoulders. The transformation of your consciousness is evident in how you choose your new friendships and how you naturally protect your energy. The old soul doesn't need drama to feel alive. It finds vitality in peace, knowledge, and conscious creation. Your healing journey has led you back home, to the center of your own being, where your eternal strength resides. As this cycle of projections comes to an end, you feel immense relief, as if a veil has been lifted from your eyes, weary of pain. Clarity is the gift you gave yourself for having the courage to face the truth about the relationship. Now you walk with firm steps, knowing that your intuition is a radar that will never again be ignored in the name of illusions. The reconstruction of your life is a continuous process of celebrating your autonomy and your profound and lasting emotional maturity. You are free to be who you truly are, without masks and without the need to rescue anyone but yourself in life. The final stage of your reconstruction is the reintegration of the self, where all the lessons learned are transformed into a new life structure. You are no longer the same woman who began that exhausting relationship. Now you are someone who knows your own strength and limits. Carl Jung would describe this state as the harmony between conscious and unconscious functions, resulting in a balanced, serene, and very firm personality. Your old soul now shines with a light that is not aggressive, but strong enough to dispel any toxic patterns. The peace you feel in your chest is the ultimate proof that the cycle has been successfully and consciously closed. The new life that unfolds before you is characterized by self-respect and the valuing of your time, your energy, and love. You have learned that your strong intuition is a sacred gift that deserves to be heard and followed without hesitation or externally created doubts. Reconstruction is complete when you look at the past not with hatred, but with the gratitude of someone who has survived and matured profoundly. Your old soul is now ready for connections based on freedom, mutual support, and genuine shared growth. Celebrate your rebirth, for you have traversed the dark night of the soul and emerged as a woman of full awareness and strength. The transformation you've experienced is an inspiration to everyone around you, showing that it's possible to start over and flourish after a setback. Your journey of clarity has transformed you into a guardian of your own peace, someone who knows exactly what she deserves and what she doesn't. The old soul now finds a new purpose, to live with joy and authenticity, serving as an example that healing is possible and necessary. There is no longer room for emotional manipulation or disrespect, for your consciousness is an impenetrable shield full of light. Feel the freshness of this new cycle, where every decision is made based on your self-worth and your happiness. Looking to the future, you see a path illuminated by your own inner wisdom, free from the shadows that tried to dim your light in the past. Rebuilding your identity has allowed you to reclaim your dreams, your voice, and your capacity to love in a healthy and balanced way. You are the greatest project of your life, and the result of this care is an existence rich in meaning, peace, and authentic achievements. The healing journey never ends, but it becomes increasingly smoother as you become more master of yourself. Move forward with confidence, for the universe celebrates the strong and conscious woman you have chosen to be today. With the certainty that you possess all the tools to maintain your liberation and continue growing in light and wisdom. Your ancient soul is a treasure that should only be shared with those who have the capacity to appreciate such depth and inner beauty. Peace is your home, consciousness is your guide, and reconstruction is your testament to victory over the shadows of the past. May this new phase be filled with moments of pure joy, self-respect, and connections that elevate your spirit to new levels of being. You have won, you have healed, and now you shine with the strength of 1,000 suns on your own unique journey.